Hello and good evening, everybody. Welcome to Creating the Conversation podcast on the Me and You platform on our YouTube and as well as our Facebook platforms. Guys, this is your host, Mr. Imran Mohammed, and my main man, Mr. Ivan Humble. I hope you guys have been okay. You've been fine. We want to start today's session with some words of condolence, and my brother Ivan wants to share some stuff with you. Please listen out for what Ivan has to say. Go for it, my man.
Hang on. You put the slide up there, yeah? Did your slide not go up there?
No, it's not. Come on. Go for it.
Oh, never mind. So today we had the sad news of the passing of Prince Philip today. Sadly died, age 99. Didn't quite make the 100, but as always, our thoughts and condolences with the Queen and with all family at this time. What do you say? What a life he's had. And he dedicated 73 years to the Queen. So, and I was seeing on Twitter, there's that us and them response to his death as well, like always. There's some for, some against, do you know what I mean? We're always sad after everything, but that's it.
Thank you, Ivan. And guys, of course, our thoughts and reflections go out to everyone who's impacted by this, and hopefully we can have myself and Ivan, and maybe we can throw someone else in that conversation as well in the future. But we'll have a fairly maybe colourful conversation around the Duke as well in the future sometime as well. So guys, today we have an awesome program for you. The gentleman that we have on today, oh my Lord, what a journey he's had in his life. A person whose portfolio is awesome. Now, trust me, guys, when we do the research and we get to find out about our amazing guests, they shock me. They're like, really? Did you really do that? What the hell? Where have you been, mate? So this gentleman, of course, his name is Mr. Conor Ibrahiem, and I'm going to bring him up in a few minutes, but there's a few words I want to say about him, which you guys really need to know. And of course, the relationship that this guy has with my main man, Ivan Humble, as well. Now, who's this guy? We have Mr. Conor Ibrahiem, who is the founder and the artistic director of Arakan Creative, a Bradford-based theatre company and social enterprise established in 2009. Arakan focuses on stories within the Islamic world and South Asian community and works in education. Guys, as a director and a filmmaker, Mr. Conor Ibrahiem is a very unique and an unapologetic storyteller. And I really mean this, guys, because some of the stuff that I've seen of this individual is bloody amazing. And the way he talks and discusses it, or at least writes about it and puts it onto the screen, is phenomenal. Many of his productions touch on real Muslim experiences, which are usually ignored, of course, on mainstream, big screen or small screen productions. Guys, I'm going to bring this gentleman up. Is none other than Mr. Conor Ibrahiem. Hello, sir. How are you?
Good evening. I'm well. How are you?
Be well, sir. Good evening to you. Salam alaikum to you.
Walaikum salam.
I hope you've been well. I hope you've been okay. I know you're chilling. All right. And I don't know where you are because you've not told me where you are.
I'm at home in Bradford.
Hey, yes, it is. Brilliant, my man. Brilliant. My brother, how's it been for you? We got the, the second unlock coming to an end soon. Hopefully. How you feeling?
I'm missing the little things, just traffic, mockers, just going to town, get some new clothes, just the little things I'm missing out on. Because, and a haircut. My goodness me, don't get me started on the haircut.
How could do my haircut? Why didn't you just get someone, backstreet?
No. Well, I tried doing my own backstreet job, and I made a pig's ear of it. So I went all kind of grade zero. Thought, you know what, we'll just start from scratch, and it's grown back, but it's not normally as thick as this. So yeah, that's overall, it's been fine. I've been fortunate that I can work from home, but I am missing the normal things, and roll on Monday.
Hey, yes, my man, and that's the way it's got to be. And there have been people, there have been family members and etc. who've had it difficult, of course, under the circumstances. People who've lost jobs, people on furlough and etc. But I think people like yourself, individuals like yourself, who are out there to entertain these individuals. We had just over a week ago now, Mr. Tazilias on the same platform. Oh my lord, we were laughing our heads off. And of course, people who were watching him throughout the whole lockdown has been amazing as well. And I think that's what has kept people's reflection and thought to a particular level of realizing that I'm going to get out of this, and there's definitely light at the end of the tunnel. Do you know what I'm saying? So hopefully you've also had the same type of experience.
Oh yeah, my glass is always half full. Inevitably, we will get out of it. And I think we've relied so much on the media and comedians like Tez. Those have almost been like our kind of Vera Lynn's in this small little strange situation we find ourselves in. So like I say, roll on Monday and roll on getting back to normal, whatever that may look like now, because I think there'll be some differences that are here to stay.
Now, of course they are. And I think you just talk about what's the new normal. Do you know what I mean? What is the new normal? There are companies closing down, all right, in Main Street, and they're saying we're going online. Right? Yes. People are going to work from home. Do you know what I'm saying? So things are changing. And on a personal level, for some of us, that's good. Right? You cut out the travel, you cut out the the whole traffic and all of that. All right, and you're at home. On the other side, of course, you've got the whole mental health stuff. People who are cooped up in their homes, and I think a lot of work needs to be done on that as well. And hey, shout out to the government. You better sort stuff out for the mental health stuff, guys. Right? So it's got to be done. It's got to be done. Mr. Conor Ibrahiem, we are very, very grateful for your presence. Thank you very much for accepting to come on this particular platform, on creating the conversation. Guys, we are going to talk to Conor today about some of the amazing work that he has done, is doing, and he's going to do in the future as well. Of course, he himself is an individual who is a actor who has acted in some very prominent programs on our TV and etc. He's had a bit of a journey and in his own career as well, but he has taken a bit of a U-turn and he's gone towards creating that type of material, which is much more hard-hitting, especially for particular type of communities. So I want to start the conversation, Conor, today where you began in 1976.
Well, that's where things began for me. Yes. So I was born in a heat wave. So I kind of I hit the ground running. Born and bred in Bradford. You
once said you got born and non-bred in Bradford.
No, that's what you said. I'm just nodding along. Okay, born non-bred in Bradford. To a Kashmiri Pakistani father and English mother, and overall had a happy childhood. There were some bumps along the way. And very early on, I knew that I wanted to be a few things. I wanted to be a police officer or an astronaut or a secret agent or an actor. And I figured, look, if I become an actor, I could probably play all those parts. So, and I used to, my kind of hook into that acting world was Christopher Reeve playing Superman. And every Christmas, I would religiously sit there in my sledge and watch this guy and think, wow, if you can make a man fly in that world, I want to be part of that world. So, but I know because the South Asian culture was very heavily influencing in my life, certainly from my formative years and up to my early teens, it was probably a choice my father wouldn't have endorsed. It would have been the traditional kind of thing, doctor or solicitor or something along those lines. Yeah, I probably got a couple of jutte on that one. But, as it so happens, my father was never around to, I guess, be presented with that option because he passed away when I was 12. Oh, so sorry. I then obviously was raised more in the kind of white kind of community. My mum, who was very much immersed in the South Asian culture, she learned the language, she wore the clothes, she cooked a mean curry. We drifted, away from the South Asian community for a number of years.
That's really fascinating because being a child of two different cultures, right? You're a hybrid. Right? So we say you're dual heritage, you're dual heritage individual, and to have your legs in two different cultures, and then of course, because we're talking about in your home, not only genetically, of course, but at the same time culturally, and to see both sides. But look what your mum has done, which is fascinating, is that she completely immersed herself into that culture. Now, my question would be that did she do that because she wanted to, or did she do that because she had to?
Well, she'd had a previous life before meeting my dad in the same South Asian community. So by the time my dad met her, she was already kind of involved in that respect.
Right.
So it wasn't a shock for her. She just carried on what she'd already kind of picked up. But I know that once my father passed on, and then she kind of went back to kind of old life, if you like. She it was something she'd missed, and she loved it, and I think she kind of missed out on some of her youth, which she kind of recaptured from 40. They say life begins at 40, but it was bang on the nose for herself. Life began very much at 40, or re-began. Anyway, so for me, yeah, absolutely. I fought in both cultures, and I loved it. It was a unique position, and I guess it really balanced me out, because I figured, look, this is talking about the 70s here. For two people from different backgrounds, especially as stark as Pakistani and English, and the kind of frictions that were going on back then, and unfortunately remain today, for two people to overcome that and get married and settle down, have a family, was a big deal. My mum wasn't particularly accepted by my dad's side of the family, and vice versa. So to come through that, I figured, well, if they can, other people not have to get married and fall in love and stuff, but they can certainly overcome the differences and just not hate and stuff. So it always puzzled me why other people just couldn't get along.
See, that's the same thing. See, that's the same thing that was highlighted when you had people coming from America, especially in the Second World War. These soldiers from America and black men who came here and met white women, had children, had relationships, and then they go back to their country and they're treated like dirt. Back again, they were, oh, you're a black man, you can't eat here, you can't drink from this. And within the same, I know within if you talk about England, there were places in England, right, where you would have like no Irish, no black people, and no dogs. Right, that's the type of engagement that they have, which is really, really sad. And I think talking about the 70s, and when we talk about 70s now, and we talk about these 70s TV celebrities and some of the stuff that they've been up to, and some of the comedians of that time, oh my lord, if they were here now, we'd be in a very different world. So your mom and your dad were at the very forefront of all of that. How many siblings are you, if you don't mind me asking?
I have an older half brother and sister, but I myself technically am an only child.
Yeah, okay, because of both of them, because of your dad not being there afterwards. Now, what it is that for me, that was really fascinating. And thank you very much for sharing that, because for your mom to do that and then not to be accepted in the culture that she wanted to be part of. And see, this is something that we don't really talk about, we don't discuss. And let me share something with you. I work in a particular setup, and I work with people from I don't know if you want to call them indigenous white community, right? And a lot of them live in Asian areas, in other words, dominated by Asians, right? And they have their own experiences of racism. They have their own experience of bigotry, but we don't talk about that. We don't discuss that. We talk about as ethnic minorities, right? Or you're Pakistani, you're Indian, you're Bengali, you're from a West Indies background, and you receive hate. And of course, with the whole BLM movement that has occurred, right? We've had this sudden discussion and conversation around black and white, but there's the other side of the coin as well. And your mom is that example.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. She was accepted by some of my dad's side of the family, but not wholesale. And she wasn't blind to it. She obviously went into this knowing that she'd expect some of that. But I say, unfortunately, it went both ways. But karma's a wonderful thing. Not just kind of going to the nitty gritty of family dynamics, but you start pointing fingers and for totally the wrong reason, and you start calling names. It's funny how things do full circle and come back and hit you in the face. So, this is a little lesson in life that I learned very early, is don't you dare spew hatred against somebody else because you don't like the look of their face or the sound of their name or the smell of the food on their clothes, because ultimately your child might go marry into that very thing you don't like.
Aye. Ivan, did you hear that? He's hit us with it.
That's true, isn't it? Do you know what I mean?
It's so true.
It's bang on. You can't. There's no arguing with that. No arguing with that point at all.
And talking about that, Ivan, you mentioned this one, didn't you? You got in your ends, at your ends, yeah. You got young white lads, all right, who behave like young black lads. They listen to garage, they listen to rap, they wear particular type of clothing, they're in particular type of cars, or like they bling it up like they're living in central London somewhere. All right. So even though there might be people who have hatred for black people, but they own kids. Right? They're modeling them. Oh my Lord! What do you say to a bigot, right, and a racist? What do you say to him?
I wouldn't say anything. I'd buy him if I could afford it. Genuinely, hand on heart, right? I know this, and somebody's famous said this recently as well. I'll tell you who it was. It was Wesley Snipes. If you can go live in another culture for, say, 6 months, if not longer, my goodness me, the world would be a better place, because you'd understand that they're human. They've got the same needs and wants and dreams as us. It just so happens that they've got the differences because the language or whatever else. But if I could, I would send a bigot first class to the country they despise the most, because they never bloody set foot there. It's purely based on whatever third-hand experiences. Yeah. And then invite them back for 6 months or a year and see how they feel then.
So what you're saying is you got a program called what was it, swapping wives? Wife swap. So you got a racist bigot swap.
To an extent, yeah. I mean, there was that bit of an experiment with that film. Forgive me. That TV series set in Bradford about a decade ago now, where they had different ethnic groups and social classes in the same house, and some good friends were formed on the back of that show. So I think that people have dipped their toe in that kind of pond, if you like. But I'm on about the whole 2 weeks is nothing. I'm on about doing it kind of wholesale. It's never happened yet, from my knowledge. But for me, that's really one of the key ways that would overturn some of the misunderstanding and bigotry that goes on in the world. Is go and live there, go and live in Pakistan for a while, or vice versa. Pakistan, come and live in, I don't know, Oxford somewhere for a year and see how it's like, and then I'll ask you your questions.
And even look, of course, you're saying to go to a different country, but we're in a very unique position as Britain, being an power which was an empire at one time. You understand? We do have access to all these different ethnicities. 40% of this country's ethnic background. I'm talking about people with a little bit more melanin. That's what I mean when I say ethnic background, because a lot of people don't know that even white communities are ethnically broken down. You understand? There's ethnicities amongst them as well. But because when we talk about ethnicity, we talk about color, really. We talk about the melanin in our body, really. Anyhow, so we're very lucky. We do have them Pakistans and them Bangladeshis and them Indias in this country. We have them Yemen in this country. All right. So there are pockets of community where people can walk into and live there for a bit and go on.
Nah, that wouldn't work. I'll be honest, that wouldn't, because they know they can get the bus home. Whereas, if you're in the deserts of Africa, you ain't getting a bus nowhere, man. The nearest bus is who knows how far, and you've got to really be kind of what's that saying? To motivate the troops, you've got to kind of burn the bridges behind you and then force them to move forward. Kind of a bit like that analogy, I guess. But unless some billionaires are watching, that kind of experiment, I guess, is a long way off. But hey, if I get there and I get a couple of more zeros at the end of my name, you're damn right I'm going to try that experiment.
And a wicked experiment, an amazing experiment it would be. And I tell you, it will open a lot of people's eyes and hearts as well. So, Conor, coming back to you as an individual, as a young man in Bradford, in Wakefield, in Demline, Yorkshire, West Yorkshire, and suddenly you start dreaming of being Superman. Have you seen the Bollywood Superman?
I have had the fortune to watch it. Yeah. I've seen the Turkish version as well. I think.
The Turkish version. I agree with you, but the thing is bloody funny, isn't it? I'm gonna give it.
Do you know what? Credit to them, man. At least they're giving it a try.
Exactly. You know what I mean? So this is young man. You start dreaming about Superman, right? And you want to become this Superman. Tell me about that journey.
Well, as I said, it was a dream. So about 5 years old, It was always kind of in the back of my head, and that kind of manifested into doing impersonations of TV personalities like Del Boy, humoring my mum, Elvis impressions, or whatever else. And then when it got to a point where
you have an Elvis impression.
I've got the lip, and I used to. No,
Love it. Go with it.
And so it was always, I guess, deemed as something on the side. It was never, when my dad was alive, I guess I never thought it's never going to happen, because he was traditional in the sense that, he was an entrepreneur. He had his corner shops and stuff, and he was making his name in that world. And I was inevitably going to follow suit. But of course, as I say, when after he passed on, and I joined the local theatre group in Bradford when I was about 14, and that's when I knew, when I had my first taste of performing and being on stage, I thought, yeah, this is where my home is. And I made a whole bunch of great friends, and I had some amazing experiences, and I knew that was me. There was nothing else that really kind of got under my skin. I was never really academic. My best grade at GCSE was drama. So, and as time went on, I thought, right, I need to map this out. How in God's name does someone from the north, from my background, make it as an actor to the levels of Christopher Reeve or whoever? So I thought, yeah, you gotta go and go to school. A-levels in drama. Got to go to drama school, get an agent, get your bit parts, and get lucky.
Right.
And 9 times out of 10, they say actors are out of work. I'm not sure if those odds have changed, but they were probably can't be too dissimilar now as they were back in the 80s and 90s. So I figured, okay, I'm still going to go for it because that's what I want to do. It's a dream, it's a vision. And so, I guess I ticked some of the boxes. I got to college, applied for drama school, and got rejected at all the auditions. And then I got my first speaking part. All happened the wrong way around. Normally, you go to drama school and then get your speaking parts. I got my speaking part before I even applied for drama school. It was a waiter in Emmerdale. So I was serving the Dingles on my first speaking part. And it was purely working through the amateur dramatic society that I was part of. I got to know someone who was working in costume, who was kind of moonlighting on the side as in Amdram, but also working professionally at YTV. So you get my CV to the casting director. Lo and behold, they were looking for an Asian waiter for an episode. Went for the audition. Wham bam, thank you, ma'am. I got the part. And then it slowly built.
Which works very well with the stereotype, isn't it?
Well, and you know something funny? The place where they did the filming was the restaurant I used to work in. Yes. And I left there on kind of bad terms. I'm never going to come back here until I've made it big. And where was my first speaking part? In that very restaurant. Okay.
So you bought cameras into that restaurant, bro.
I bought cameras, and when I walked, the boss was like, "You?" I said, "Yes, me." Anyway, and then from there, I managed to get. I got an agent, I got my equity card, and then slowly I got bit parts here and there. And over the years, I played. I ticked some stereotypical boxes. Doctor, taxi driver. So I was in Corrie a couple of times, EastEnders, Brookside. DL and Pasco, Bad Girls, the usual suspects, if you like. But then my eyes started to open around the mid-noughties and thinking, this is harder than I thought. So I changed my name, and I started doing some writing on the side to try and think, well, how else could I crack this nut?
You just said I changed my name.
Yeah.
So you were what, Conor Alexandra, or what were you?
No, my birth name, Shiraz Rashid.
Shiraz?
Yeah. And it remains my middle name. And then as time went on, as I say, I thought, well, you've got to anglicize the name. How else are people doing this? How are they getting in there? So, but in hindsight, it probably did me no. I don't think he opened any doors in particular.
That's interesting.
So that's why I reverted back. I chose my own preference of Islamic
hybrid. Yeah, you made a bit of a hybrid.
I made a hybrid because I never had that hybrid, and I wanted to really identify that mixture. So okay,
let me hold you on this, Conor, because that's really interesting. I came across a study that was done by BBC a while ago, and what they've done is they got two individuals, two young men, and one of them was named Mohammed. The other one was, I believe, I can't remember what his name was, John or Johnson or something like that. His name was, yeah. And both academically equal, credentials equal, exactly the same, right? And they, of course, put in applications for interviews. The person whose name is Mohammed, he got, I think so, it was 1/3 less interest than the other one. Now, up to that point, someone might say, yeah, that's not really a particular study or a scientific study in itself. Fine, but it's what happened afterwards, because there's a documentary on it. So they would speak to, they had recordings of these individuals, these companies. They would say, yeah, I couldn't relate to the name, or when I looked at the name, I felt that I might not, they may not understand our ethos or our culture, right? So on one side, we have this thing about equality in the workplace. There's no discrimination. There's act this and act that, coming into place. But then on the other side, someone like you, who's in this particular field, you are because a name is an identity.
Mm.
It's a very powerful part of your identity. And someone like you, Conor, and I came across something very interesting. What you said, you go that you consider labels very important on the basis of identity.
They are,
right? Yeah, and they are. But you chose to, and it's really, I think that's really powerful what you've done. But of course, you are also a particular model for young people coming into the particular areas and etc. What are you saying to them by doing this, or you had done this? What are you saying to them?
What I'm saying to them is, yeah, sometimes you're faced with a proposition where you have to think, right, do I continue doing the same thing? What's that always saying, what's the definition of stupidity? Doing the same thing and expecting a different outcome.
That's right.
So I tried that, and I thought, well, I'm not getting very far. Not that I would endorse changing your identity or changing a label to kind of get ahead in life, but that's everyone's individual right to do so. It depends what you're bargaining. It depends what it is. Is it the way you dress? Is it your hairstyle? Is it your name? But of course, with me, I had the license to do that because I'm from the English background as well. And I did not have that given to me as my birth name. I didn't have an anglicized or an English name. So I thought, right, I have got the right to choose my own English name. So I decided to do that. Primarily because, and it wasn't just because of the career, because back when I was a kid, I always wanted that mixture to reflect who I was. But it came to the forefront when I thought, my career might need this boost as well. So I thought, yeah, it's not only a personal desire, but now I need to do it for my career and see what happens.
So did you come across bullying?
Bullying, not massively. There was moments which really stood out to me. If you remember the Bradford riots in 2001, I was on the bus. It was shortly after that, maybe in the couple of weeks after. And there was an elderly white chap on a bus, and I got off in Shipley, which is one of the BD postcodes in Bradford. And he just gave me this dirty look, because I look, obviously, on the face of it, I look probably more Asian than I do English. So I stood out, and he kind of guessed. And that look said it all. He was disgusted with me being in his zone, on his bus. I don't know what. So that and nothing was said. It was just the look, and I knew exactly why. It was on the fallout from the riots, because it was instigated from my memory is that predominantly from the South Asian community. And there was other moments. And the flip side of that was one of my Asian relatives, his neighbor, called me a white B word. And another occasion, somebody called me a black B word. And at that point, I started laughing about it and thinking, well,
yeah, because you get slapped all over the place.
It wasn't that much. It was one those 3 instances, and that was it. But I think, well, is that the level of your mentality? Is that how brainy you really are? Well, all you can do is string a couple of words together or a look. I'm thinking, you know what? I'm going to rise above that. I might curse you under my breath, but if we lower ourselves to that kind of basic denominator, we are no better than them. So we have to rise above it, as painful as it may be. And, I can remember that instant 20 years ago now on the bus, like it was yesterday. But it's interesting how these little things punctuate. So if you think about it, that was nothing in comparison to some people who are murdered because of racism.
No, let's
I was given a look, but I remember that.
Yeah, you do. And that's the powerful thing. And in fact, it comes through your work. It generally comes through your work. And Ivan, let me throw you in here. Just some words that pierce through Conor's heart. After 20 years, with the same venom, he has used them words. You were in an organization for 5 years, mate, getting up to everything. What are your thoughts about the people that have been on the receiving end of some of the things that you had gone through or been part of?
At the time, I guess, you don't really think about it. It's not until, I guess, when we've gone into some towns where they've been, where we work sometimes, Imran, and then I hear from the community there, or from some of the children, what they felt on the day when we were there. It kind of does sit with me a bit. Do you know what I mean? If I'm honest, it doesn't really faze me too much, but it does make me feel a bit bad. Do you know what I mean? But I was a different person back then than now. Do you know what I mean?
And now you are a very different person.
But I tell you what,
go for it.
It's like that. If you remember the school in this, I think it was me and Arakan. And after we told my story, we had a 13-year-old Muslim girl come up to us who's wearing a hijab, and nearly in tears saying, now she realised that people don't hate Muslims just because they're Muslims. Because I explained my story to them, she had a better understanding. So I guess being able to tell my story and empower people that way is my way of giving back, saying sorry, my forgiveness.
Yeah, in a way it is. And I think that's exactly when you meet young people. And I have, and in one of the incidents, I was there myself when that had happened. I think it was really powerful. I nearly came to tears myself because it's a very, very powerful gesture. And Conor, I think if that same individual who had said them venomous words to you, later on, 20 years later, you met them and they turned around and said to you, I'm sorry. I think that it will do wonders for you, wouldn't it?
It would. And I'm not perfect, man. I've made my mistakes. And I always, for the wrongs that I've done to others, there's one particular instance I always remember in school as a youngster. Not that I was, a real bad boy or anything like that. But there was one instance where I did something I regretted, and I always wish I could meet that guy and say sorry.
Wow.
And it really burdens me, does that? Because even though I wasn't, like I said, the main instigator, I put a little bit of an imprint on that poor guy's experience. And I often wonder, how is he? So I know that if anyone came to me that had wronged me and they were sincere, I would welcome them with open arms. Life's too short.
Life is short, mate. Very short. So you're on your journey, right? You have chosen to create a name which is a hybrid of a Western name as well as a Muslim name. You are in that position. You are a young person, and you are, becoming a more of a, hopefully over time, a more famous actor, a person in that particular area. But something happens.
Well, nothing happened. That's the problem. So I thought, well, okay, I've tried, gone to the auditions, spent God knows how many hours on National Express, 10-hour round trips. The money I never had. You have some successes, but more failures than not. And I think I got to a point where I thought, well, something's got to change. So I started doing some writing on the side, script writing, self-taught, and that kind of started generating its own little life. I've got a couple of small commissions here and there. I thought, okay, and I quite like it. And I was never really, as I said, I was never an academic at school. Writing wasn't my thing, but I was certainly thinking of ideas and weird stories. So I guess the kind of two obviously go hand in hand. The only difference is I wasn't putting pen to paper, but I started doing it then. But again, that was a slow burn. So I really want to be in this industry. How am I supposed to do that? I tried moving to London. I got as far as Stockport, stayed there for 4 years, and then did a U-turn and came back. Stockport, yeah, it's nice. Stockport's great.
I worked there as a chaplain for a while in the college.
Ah, yes. So it's a lovely area.
It is.
But it's not London, is it? It's not the big smoke where all the things happen for actors. So I figured maybe I've got to start creating my own stuff. But it was a combination of things. So it wasn't just that I've got to stop doing that or look for something else. It was frustration that was growing, that I was going for castings which were predominantly stereotyped. I've been for more terrorist auditions than I've had hot samosas. I've got a couple of them. and I was getting tired of that, getting tired of going for the taxi drivers and all that. I thought, well, surely I'm more than just a bit part.
No, but you are, Connor, and just
not to them. Not to them.
Exactly. Not to them. But let me just share this with you, because I think even off screen, off air, sorry, we spoke about this a few minutes, and I mentioned the likes of Riz Ahmed, for example, who is an amazing actor in his field. He has done amazing things, and now he has made a number of movies, which break away from that stereotype. And of course, your efforts, your time, someone like yourself who has gone through that struggle, all right, probably not directly, but indirectly, has etched away for younger actors, younger people who are in entertainment. All right, so we see more color, more culture, and more people of diverse backgrounds on screen now than probably at your time.
Yeah.
Do you understand? So sometimes won't we say that sometimes you have to come through the stereotype to break the stereotype?
Yeah, true. I was saying before we came on air, would I look back and would I change anything? Probably not, because those tests that we go through inform us and put us on a certain path. And I just started realizing that maybe acting wasn't ultimately for me.
Right.
When I started creating my own work and looking at the audience's faces when they were responding to what I'd written, real issues, social issues which they could relate to, and the feedback we were getting started blowing me away. I was like, maybe that's why I was never really going into the acting thing full on. Maybe God knew better. This was maybe, and I got more satisfaction, and I actually gained more kind of recognition and awards through my writing and directing than I'd ever did as an actor. So I went to Hajj in 2005-2006. It was a crossover that year between December and January. And I said, look, God, you know best. If acting's not, and it was a big thing for me to say, look, God, if you know acting's not for me, put me on another path.
Yes.
It was difficult to let go of my dream, but it was probably the best thing, because I started taking charge of my own destiny, started writing my own stuff, and that wasn't easy. And I will come to that because there was no one else that was going to write the stuff that I thought, well, why couldn't I? As a joke, I wrote to the casting director of James Bond, right? And I says, I wrote to a load of casting directors,
right?
And throw some all oddball kind of comments in there just to stand out from the masses. And I said, if you want someone from a South Asian background, I'd be happy to do the first mixed race Bond. I never heard anything back. But you've got to try some funky things. Because then you start thinking, what else do I do? And then inevitably I thought, I've got to start creating.
Recently, they were talking about Idris Elba, weren't they?
Yeah, and the other guy from what's that Netflix series? I think there's a mixed race black actor from there that's being considered for it as well.
Oh, yeah, from Bulletproof, innit?
Yeah,
that's right. It's called Bulletproof.
That's right. Now, what I'm saying is that in your time, that struggle was there. There's no doubt about it. But it's amazing how daring you were. You're like, you know what? I'm gonna throw everything at you.
Yeah,
right?
I'm right.
Which is very, it's something which is I would commend you for that, and I respect you for that.
You have to, you know, your dreams aren't going to fall in your lap. And finding my voice wasn't easy. There were times when I swallowed my words and things that I didn't say that I look back and think I should have said, just to keep the peace and just to not be seen as problematic and then risk my next job. There's lots of things that you bite your tongue about, but everyone's got the kind of line, and I guess it got to a point where I thought enough's enough. So I thought I've got to start doing my own thing, and that's when I started my own company in 2009. And no, that wasn't easy either. So there you go, Arakan Creative. Now, it never got core funding, and over the course of 6 years, I think we got commissions to the tune of like 220 grand thereabouts through different projects if you combine them all. Each one was a struggle, and I thank to the end of my days each and every organization that has done, has funded and supported Arakan. But my first major application was to the Arts Council, and they rejected me on two counts. One was I didn't have enough managerial experience. All right, I'll give them that. I was a new director at that point, not newish. But the second one was, you're going to laugh at this one, no benefit to the audience. And I still have that letter. And are you seriously telling me, Arts Council, there's no benefit to the audience? A complete joke. So I thought, I'm not going to listen to this. I have built enough thick skin and resilience over my years as an actor to not listen to the first rejection I get. Because if I did that, I wouldn't get anywhere.
What did it mean by no benefit to the audience?
That was one of two sentences. I don't know. They didn't elaborate, but that was one of their reasons. No benefit to the audience. Because my pitch was about Saladin Ayyubi, doing a play on his life. Now, he's been featured in the likes of Kingdom of Heaven. He's a well-known historical figure within the Western world. Sorry, forgive me. Known in the Western world from the Muslim world. And what do you mean no benefit? You've got an audience here that are dying out, crying out for representation on stage and film. If the audience isn't there, it's because you've not bloody well nurtured it. And I'm presenting you with a perfect story. And they said no benefit to the audience. So I thought, fine, that's not going to put me down. In total, they rejected me 4 times for projects that I eventually got up and running anyway through other more worldly, kind of understanding people. And I made it work. I made it work because it had to work.
Right. Let me hit you with this. What's going on?
So this is a still from my debut feature film, Frisia. So this was filmed. This was actually a scene in a masjid in Leeds, Makkah Masjid. Frisia, there you go. So Frisia came about through a 3-year pot of funding I got from the Joseph Rowntree Charitable Trust. And this was the year 2 project. Was going to be 3 short films, but then I thought, in the spirit of low budget films that make a big splash on a low budget, I thought, well, I can do that. I've got a budget of like 27 grand or something. Can I do a feature film? And I thought, yeah, you've got like Amoros, Peros, you've got the South American films. El Mariachi was my inspiration to make my own.
Wow.
Which was the kind of the first of 3 films. After that, there was the Antonio Banderas film.
13.
No, it was El Mariachi, and there was Desperado. So it was like a South American gunslinger,
Yeah.
I made El Mariachi on $7,000, and it made a mint. I mean, it went on to be big time. Thought, well, okay, if they can do that, I can do that.
Yes.
So Frisia came about through the project, the 3-year project from the Joseph Rowntree people were to look at 2 things, racial inequality and Islamophobia. And I figured, Arakan is about shining a positive light on the Muslim community and correcting misunderstandings. And it makes perfect sense to me to go down the Islamophobia route. Mm-hmm. And I pitched my 3 ideas.
I love what you said. You said, we are a corner shop which is providing South Asian or Islamic food, but we welcome Bernard and Susan or Luke from Poland.
Yeah, I've forgotten that. That's an old interview, that. Yeah, absolutely. Because in the course of my work, there was an individual who said, I'm only catering for Muslim audiences. I said, no, I'm not. I am providing something that's not there to an audience which deserves stories that they can relate to. But never would I close the door to your Bernards, Lukes and Susans, whoever else. Never. They're more than welcome. Just as if we're going to be given, diet of a TV diet of Only Fools and Horses, and some others do have them and all the rest of it, and they have huge followings from all walks of life. I can do the same thing.
You can.
But anyhow, that's fine.
No, wicked. And guys, this is on Creating the Conversation podcast on Me and You education platform on YouTube and Facebook. Guys, you guys are awesome, and we have Conor Ibrahiem in the house, my man, chilling. Guys, I'm going to put the trailer of the movie that this gentleman has made, and we're going to have some more questions, some more conversations with the gentleman. Please check it out.
Slay the idolaters wherever you find them. Arrest them, besiege them, and lay in ambush everywhere for them.
Unlike any other teenager. Predictable.
We've got the far-right thinking we're slaves, and then Downing Street telling Mum to spy on us.
Spy the Taliban in one breath and give them a BD postcode in another.
ये मामला मस्जिद का नहीं है।
देखिए वो बच्चियां, वह मुस्लिम हो या गैर मुस्लिम, वो इंसानों की बच्चियां।
But they're evil.
And you? What are you?
So what, we start wearing dresses and blonde wigs for them to start loving us?
तुम हमारे बेटों पर नस्ल परस्त होने का इल्जाम लगा रहे हो। ये साले गोरे भी इससे कम नहीं.
You're only Muslim for half an hour on a Friday.
Racists. Sooner they're hungry and homeless, sooner they'll know who their friends are.
نيتي سوي في التغيير غيري كلها النظام التعس.
When a Muslim kills, it's terrorism. If a white guy does the same thing, he's mentally unstable.
So what do the rest of us do?
Talk. That's what will stop next World War, if you ask me. Bus stops.
Wow. Powerful, man. You know, I've got to say, getting someone like Akib Khan, Matthew Thomas kicked it. He kicks it. And of course, you got, was it Afsania Dehroui?
Afsana
Dehroui.
Yeah.
I tell you, some of the actors that you've got in this movie are young actors. Yeah. Right? And of course, I remember Akib Khan from West is West. You know what I mean? Go on with it. Pakistan. Young man, amazing lad, yeah? But I've got to say, you know, the actors that you've got in this movie are powerful. Where did you find them, my man?
We were lucky. I mean, Akib I worked with prior to Frisia. I played his dad in his short film. I met him then. And he's a Bradford lad. So we kept in contact. And I said, look, I'm doing a project soon. I'd love you to be involved. So obviously he read the script and he said, yes, it was a real kind of feather in the cap because, you know, someone of his standing, he didn't have to bother with low-budget films. Matthew, I was working in education. I was working on a schools project. And there was a time where this group of kids started coming to the front and saying, look, when I grow up, I want to be X, Y, and Z. Matthew said, I want to be an actor. And he had this look about him, which kind of captured the essence of the character I was writing at the time in the script. I thought very kind of stone-faced, you know, he's got layers to him, looked very mature for his years. And I thought, So I remembered that. And Afsana, I put a casting call out and she applied through the traditional casting route. You know, you submit your CV and you meet and that what have you. So, but I was very firm. I wanted to get mainly Northern actors to give Northern talent, you know, a real boost. But it was a struggle getting that number of ethnic minorities in one film. So I had to go to London and look there. So we've got a couple from down south. And the rest, people, a combination of people I worked with previously, and again, the traditional casting route where you put out a call and they respond.
Wicked. Now, quick one for our listeners, guys. Okay, 3 worlds collide during a racist attack, leaving a Muslim scholar fighting for his life. Now they must face the storm before the calm, and they call it Islamophobia. Conor, you have this thing about you. You are not scared of anything, are you? Bring it on, face on, right, left, hook. I'm gonna knock you out of the ring, bro.
No, well,
You went full on in this movie because you touched on everything. You touched on, you know, how the committees had reacted because of the grooming scandal. You touched on how young people from Asian communities and background were feeling their feelings, their statements, their way of looking at the world. You looked at kids from this indigenous community and how they were impacted. You looked at hijabi. You looked at Asian women. You looked at, man, you know what? This movie should be up there, bro. What's going on?
It kind of got up there for a moment, and then let's listen. The thing is that with distribution in film, it's always a very, very tough nut to crack, right? But this kind of movie, as kind of nuanced as it is, it's the first and remains the first UK film to look at Islamophobia as a primary issue. We're not talking about a subplot in Bad Girls. We're talking about a primary narrative. Remains the same. It's not going to be attractive.
I watched that Bad Girls, you know, with the subplot as well.
But this kind of film would never be a mainstream. I mean, you have social realism in the UK. Yeah, of course you do. But unless you're Ken Loach or someone big and you can get away with it because your name carries that. You know, but for the rest of us, it's always going to be a tough set. And particularly, you know, we are usually seen as the bad guys and girls in movies. You know, maybe less so these days, but still fairly up there. So,
but you have recognition of independent filmmakers. You have, especially even in Cannes. Do you know what I mean? They have a special genre. They have a special, you know, what's do you call that? You know, a recognition for it. Do you understand? In that particular platform, you have it in Hollywood. You have it in other parts of the world. It's not that there's no recognition, because the thing is, if you're hitting on hard issues, real issues, you are making the true stories.
True, but maybe in the years because I did submit to all the top festivals as well as top second tier festivals. You know, your Cannes, your Sundances, and all the rest of it. There might have been that year a heck of, and there always is a lot of competition to get into Cannes and, you know, Venice and the Toronto one and all the rest of it. So it's not that I didn't try, but happens, hey, maybe my film wasn't as strong as some of the other ones. That's fair game, but some of the decisions are political. And you know that from the stories you read afterwards. You know, if that wasn't the case, then why haven't the Oscars been representing all ethnic groups since they started back in the 20s or the 30s? Why did it take a hashtag to change shit at the top? It shouldn't take a hashtag. It should take common sense. It should take, if we're an artist, I don't care what color you are, what size you are, how tall you are, how thin you are, how short or long your name is, whether you're missing your W in Thandi Newton or whatever else, we will be fair and represent you and award you accordingly, but that has not been the case. So with that in mind, you've got to be realistic, and you know, sometimes you will not get there on merit. It will be because they keep you out. Maybe if I'd submitted Frisia now, if it was made now to the British Film Institute and the kind of festivals now, maybe it might have got shortlisted. I don't know. But that's okay. As Allah wills, it's fine.
Can't you do that?
Probably it's too old now. The class is too old. I think there's a limit to some films. You know, they've got to be made within the past year and a half, or something like that, I think. But you know, there may be a platform for it in the future.
There's a project that can be
potentially. There are still some avenues I need to maybe re-explore, or maybe new ones will emerge. I live in hope that Frisia can find a platform and reach mass audiences. In a worst case scenario, I'll put it on YouTube for free and just, you know, let people just watch it.
We just had one of our listeners here, Jabin Soria, who's asked, she goes, what platform is Frisia available on?
Unfortunately, it's not. It was on Amazon for a short while, but I had a fallout with the distributor, and so I'm going to maybe look at re-putting it on Amazon via my own methods. I've tried Netflix. You give me an email for Netflix, no one can get hold of it. So
maybe you need to go and knock on Dave Chappelle's door, because some of the stuff that he's bloody pulled off on Netflix, you know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, maybe I need to. I'm sure there's more than one way to skin a cat, and I will keep trying. But if the sister wants to watch it, then fine. If I tell you what, if they get in touch with you, I'll happily supply them a link to it, because it is on a website. It's on a holding platform for festival films, and there's a password you can watch it on there. So I'm happy to pass that on.
Okay, thank you for that. Maybe you need another viewing, you know, a private viewing or something like that we can get people in.
Potentially, we had good turnouts. You know, when it was just launched in 2015-16. So it may take another outing. You're right. If I have space in my diary, I can probably plan something, but it would need to be well thought through. We need some money behind it, because you know these things to promote aren't cheap. And ideally, some distributors in the audience to see public reaction, because they're going to go by what the public. And we've had some great feedback. Some of the distributors not even bothering looking at the feedback forms. So what do you do? There is an audience.
What's behind the name?
Frisia, so it's obviously a plant, and true to form, I always like picking unique words and names with kind of double meanings. Now, Frisia, I was looking through the dictionary, and I found the word in there, and the name of the plant, well, it kind of stood out to me. So I did some research. It turns out that this is the kind of plant that florists recommend you give to someone who's under pressure. If the rose is associated with love, Frisia is associated with that kind of gesture. Wow. I thought, well, that kind of fits well, because each of the stories have got pressure. And I like the word, and it was different. I didn't want to call it Islamophobia. That's too obvious. I wanted to have some exactly what this is. Why the name? So I wanted that kind of understanding behind it. And actually, Frisia is, inshallah, going to be part of a trilogy. And the other two films, which I've got in my mind, are also named after flowers and will be linked to the first film. So there won't be sequels, but they will have a link to each film.
Yeah, a connection with that particular plot. And I think you have this thing about with words anyway, and especially with your company, Arakan. Because when I read it first time, because you have Arkan ad-Din, all right, the pillars of Deen, the pillars of religion or something. But even offline, when I just spoke to you and I asked you, where did this Arkan come from?
It wasn't to do with the pillars of. I mean, that came along afterwards. I realized that link. But the primary reason, I was looking for a name that could translate well to non-Arabic or non-Urdu speaking audiences. So I needed a word that could be easily rolled off the tongue. And I think I was looking through what there used to be a Muslim yellow pages called the Muslim Directory. And I started reading about the Rohingya, the Burmese Muslims, and their suffering. And they were from Arakan, or what it was known as Arakan. I thought, Arakan, that's an interesting word. I thought, yeah, I think I'll have that name as a little nod to the plight they go through. And
Arakanese, from the name Arakanese.
Yeah, Arakanese, or Rohingya, as they're also known as. But later on, I discovered that Arakan means, the pillars of faith. I was so, how weird is that? Meant to be.
And it was meant to be. And I think, Conor, that's the thing about you, that you have chosen them type of names or statements and etc., which is some are very direct. Of course, you've got something called hijab.
Yeah.
But what I loved about you is the way you said, sped by the word.
Yes.
That's one of your. I love that what you done there. It's said by the word. Then you had a S in front of the word, and you had like someone had taken a sword or something and cut it.
Yes, because that had a double meaning. People say spread by the sword, but actually no. You can't spread something as pure as faith by harshness or through fighting and through oppression or whatever, because ultimately it has to come from within. So it has to come from words, or people are inspired by your actions.
So this myth. It is. So explain that to me, because I shared that with you and I want our listeners and on creating the conversation podcast here to understand how your brain works, because you're an artist. That's your foundation. And one of the most beautiful things about artists is that the artist speaks to the soul of others. You say what we think and what we feel. Musicians do this. Artists do this. Painters do this. Comedians do this. Actors do this. By wearing them different masks, you are depicting, showing the world what we are as human beings. And by giving that nod to the Arakanese, or giving that nod to the origin of Islam per se, or this misunderstanding that Islam was spread by the sword, but spread by the word instead, which is really powerful. I think you have this very unique way of using words, and I love that about you, and I really mean that, Conor.
Thank you. All I know is that while I'm on this rock, I want to do my best. So when I meet my Lord, I'll say, look, I'm not perfect. This is my CV, and I did my best while I was on earth. And as long as I have that about me, Allah will hopefully guide me into whatever path He knows to be best. Even if it's something I really want, I'll say, but I always do this in I'm not going to share my du'as, but you get the idea. Put me on the right path, basically. Keep me on that path.
Yeah.
And if He's going to bless me with certain words, don't get me wrong, it's not like they just come to me. I've got to put some effort in as well. And I would have it no other way. I don't want to be given anything on a plate. I want to fight and earn my kind of my outcomes, if you like. And so if I never, that was through effort. The word freesia, the Arakan, the spread by the sword word, all comes through thinking. And I think ultimately, if you're true and you want to do good things, then you will be given the ability to stand up and stand out.
Ask and I will give.
Yeah.
That's what it is. So spread by this word is a theatre production of yours.
It was, yes. That was part one of the 3 years work.
Right. So that it's not touring. It's not something that you want to revive.
No. Well, we filmed that to make it into an educational resource pack, and just because work and life got in the way, I never got around to actually finalizing that. Because when you mentioned my intro, work in Islamic stories, South Asian issues, and education. What education? I used to do workshops in schools, and also I wanted to create a catalogue of work, which was like DVD resource packs. One of them was going to be spread by the word, and inshallah it still will be. It's just a matter of time and resource to get it finalized. But that's that always was a theatre play. I mean, it could become a film, I guess, a proper film, but that's a historic drama cost a lot of money. So
yeah, of course it does, and of course, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you strength for that. I want to bring something up, Ivan. What's going on here? What are you doing here? Who are these people?
Oh, that was Cambridge. That's when I went Asia, part of the Q&A afterwards. But that's the film. I watched that film back then, and the one thing about that film that I still remember is that one line from the Muslim girl to her brother: "You only Muslim for half hour on a Friday." That one for years. Do you know what I mean? It's just such a big part of the film, that is for me.
And that is a very powerful one, because Conor, what you've done is, if you've touched on and you've taken stories which are real, that is so true about so many Muslim men, young men. But to be on, oi, gotta go Juma, bro, You know what I'm saying? We turn up in Juma. Why are we going to Juma? Yeah, boys, what's happening, boys? What are we going to do after Juma, bro? That type of behavior. And that's, in a way, what you've just done through this particular, artistic work that you've done, this projection, this beautiful tapestry of, reality, what was happening, and you project it onto the screen is, hey, this is what really happens in our communities. Check it out.
You have
to.
You have to be fair. I mean, just, I'm always interested to know why we're hated. I'm not just going to say, oh, you hate me, I will hate you. That's just really basic, basic human, and we're so much bigger than that. So I always make sure that I am fair to both sides. I will shine the positives, but also look at what the issues are. But not in a kind of provoking type of way, that I'm going to rattle people up the wrong way. You've got to engage them and have some conversation. And interestingly, Ivan, you said that line, that line that you like, or that stood with you, is actually the flip of a line a good Christian friend said to me, is that her father always said that you're only a Catholic for half an hour on a Sunday. So I thought, that's a good line. I'm going to flip that and use it in this. So yeah, it's interesting where these particular sentences and
it kind of fits well.
Well, that's where that line came from. That is one of my favorites, I have to say, because it does say a lot in a little.
There's something, because you have a very slick way of viewing things.
I think the best thing about the film.
Go for it.
Another thing about it is, I think, another thing about it portrays a true story, but there's also a counter narrative after everything that could be taken out of context, if you know what I mean. So there'll be something controversial. The next part of the film will be a counter narrative for that part. Then it'll go on to something else, which is what's make the film so powerful. It's balanced.
Balanced. That was one of the most commonly used words in our feedback, was balanced, which I'm so thankful for, that people recognize that.
But there's one thing I want to touch on, because you just said one of the things that really motivates you to create something like this is, why do you hate me? And in fact, that is the same impetus or same reason what our dear Khan, right, who we've had on this particular platform, said the same thing. Why do you hate me? Same question. And it's like this desire. Now I'm gonna say this, because being an Asian, Muslim, British, English, child of the empire, my parents and my family being displaced or from their lands, us guys finding out we don't even know who we are, what we are, and then coming into a country where you're not entirely completely accepted because you look different, because you got more melanin than someone else. Why do you hate me, man?
Well, you'd have to ask the individual, but they'll have some common reasons and some individual ones, maybe some through personal experience. But from my experience, it's been because of others. That guy on the bus who gave me the dirty look is because of the idiots who were in the riots. And I was one of the kind of on the periphery because I looked like them. And the same for any people in the world who've gone and bombed people in the name of faith. We're hated because of association, because of Islam. So I get that, and some of it will be down to personal experiences. Maybe someone's sister or partner or daughter has been, victimized by someone from the South Asian or the Muslim community. Maybe they've robbed their house, just mistreated them. But the same can work both ways, obviously. It's not just one way. So there'll be those nuanced reasons, of course there will. But the bigger picture is, why do you hate me? That wasn't me who stole from you or did that to whoever's daughter or X, Y, or Z or bombed someone. Judge me as you find me. But it's not always easy to do that. It's easy to read the headline, yeah, I'm going to hate you because you look like them, you sound like them. I can move on. My life is too busy. I'm easy just to hate you and that's it. I don't want to get to know you.
See, one of the things that we do within our work that we do within schools, and just like yourself, because you do a lot of work within working with young people and certain universities. So one of the things that we do, we tackle this exact idea of stereotypes. That a stereotype, positive or negative, right? And if it's negative, it can become a prejudice, and from a prejudice, you can get discrimination, and that could evolve into genuine physical hate, harming, and hurting. Now we look at that. And it's amazing some of the reactions that we get. I'll give you one example. Like we went to a school where it's predominantly Asian lads, right? So it's a boys' school, but predominantly they were from Asian lads in a school in Manchester, and it was the school that Salman Abedi, the bomber of MEN Arena.
Yeah,
right? We got that was too real for me, man. That where it happened is somewhere where I come and go a lot. It shocked me that did. Anyhow, so we went to the school, and this young man. So one of the things that we put up on the wall talking about stereotype was white women, right? And oh my Lord, some of the stuff that came out, because we create a very open conversation with them. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's relaxing enough for them to be very open with us, yeah. And of course, it's a safe space. Some of the stuff they were saying, there were stereotypes, but they were stereotypes like, I don't want to say them and it just outright for some people. Yeah, it would have been difficult, but that's exactly what was happening on that particular platform. It's shocking for us. And then you realize some of this hate that comes out or people engaging, especially one of the topics that you've touched on in this particular movie around grooming, which I think it was very daring of you. Right, because a lot of people in certain communities, and especially the reaction that we hear from the committees of the mosques, and then the gentleman says, "No, these young girls are someone's daughters." What made you? Wow, you brought that right at the front, mate.
You had to, because that was one of the key reasons why that hatred was being spewed out. That was one of the fuels of Islamophobia, and so you've got to start addressing it, thinking, right, we've got to start separating some of the issue here. You've got to start dissecting it as carefully as possible, because it could potentially blow up in itself. Okay. And you can't argue with an imam saying he quoted from the Quran, the way you have to respect others. You can't argue with that. And people will be on the other side of the table, literally on the other side. You have people in denial, will put their heads in the sand saying somehow it's their fault, it's the girl's fault. Well, no. It had to be, because I was looking at what were the key drivers of Islamophobia, and that was one of them. I'd be doing a disservice to the whole issue in the film if I did not address that, as well as other things. So I knew I had to tackle it and do it, like I said, sensitively, truthfully, not labor the point too much, because I think sometimes less is more, especially in an artistic sense, and then leave that kind of Islamic thing that you cannot argue with. You can't argue with that. Basically, treat people with respect. They're people's children. Under a certain age, they're all innocent. It doesn't matter what age, in fact, they are innocent.
They are.
So
innocent.
you have to underline that with that kind of powerful message, because then there's no comeback. You can't come back on the Islamicness of it. The Quran quotes, you just can't.
Thank you, Connor. You guys, it has been an awesome opportunity to have a conversation with you and discuss all of these. There's so much you are doing. It's phenomenal. I just, personally, I just want to have you here and strip everything. You've done work on the whole conversation around hijab. All right. You have also done stuff on, dealing with real issues. You've also done stuff on and created small videos and etc. on people who are, they were Victorian, right? Victorian Muslims.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I mean, it was Robert Rashid, wasn't it, that you done on, and you've done an amazing work with that. You and every so on, you're coming out with something phenomenal. I want to bring something up, and then of course we'll wrap this up. And I think Ivan has requested something, and he's going to request that. So hopefully it'll be a positive and not a negative way of reaction towards that. But I just want to bring this up. This is one of the projects that you're doing at the moment.
Yes.
We've shown this to our community, our people who are listening to us at this moment in time. If you want to say a few words about that, it's up to you. Sure. But if not,
absolutely,
we can come back to maybe another opportunity to have a conversation with you at a later period.
Oh, Connor,
go for that.
Yes.
Or if you want, Connor, we could do a part 2 next week and talk all about it for an hour. If you're free next week,
I'd love to. I'm sorry, obviously it's this.
No.
The hours flown by, but I'd be more than happy to do that to follow up, and we can. But in a nutshell, it's a new comic book looking at superheroes from the Islamic, Muslim, and Christian faiths working together.
Come, let's unite on a word which is common between you and us. Talking to the Christians and the Jews in the Quran. Connor, it has been an honor meeting you, my man. It's wicked seeing you, wicked talking to you, and hopefully we'll get an opportunity to speak to you coming week. You look after yourself, you take care of yourself. You're a gold mine, bro. Guys, you're listening to Mr. Conor Ibrahiem doing his business. From me, Imran, your host. Salam. Take care, guys. Ivan, you want to throw something in, bro?
Yeah, just see you later.
Yep, definitely see you next week, guys. Thank you so much for hosting me. I really appreciate it. Jazakallah.
And our listeners and people, individuals who have joined in today, sending in the messages, thank you very, very, very much. Connor, please don't go anywhere. Guys, take care. Signing out. Creating the Conversation podcast.